18th meeting of the North Branford Conservation Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency to order. Roll call. We have members Whitworth, Fishbach. We have our town council and liaison, Marie Diamond. I'm Frank Bergano. Our town planner, Dave Perkins, is here, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember your name. Kathleen Daly is also here. So with that, why don't we stand and pledge allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of May 28th, and we're going to need to table the minutes of June 18th because we don't have a quorum here for those minutes. So do we have any changes or corrections to the minutes of June 28th?
May 28th.
I mean, May 28th. I'm sorry, May 28th? No? So we have a motion to approve? I don't know. I don't have it in front of me.
I was not.
I don't think you, oh, maybe we don't have enough people for May 28th either then?
No, you do.
We do? It's-
Yep.
Was I there?
It says you were.
Okay, if it
Okay.
says I was, I was.
I thought you were. So
Okay.
could we have a motion and a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting minutes pass. The first item on the agenda is the application number 2025-2, West Pond Road, Glenwood Road, application for subdivision for 6 lots, owner applicant BIC Investments Properties LLC, Bruce Ciccone. And this is continued from our June 18th meeting. Can you please state your name and all that?
My name's Matt Ellis. I'm
You want to
licensed.
pull the mic over so we can hear it?
Thank you.
No, okay. Since we don't have really any in the public. My name's Annette Ellis. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Giuliano Associates in Wallingford. I'm here representing BC Properties LLC, Bruno Ciccone. This application is for a 6-lot subdivision on a 30.9 acre parcel, having access on both West Pond Road and at the end of Glenwood Road. Since this is a continuation, I have presented everything twice, but I want to go over what's changed. So since the last meeting, Ian Cole, registered soil scientist and professional wetland scientist, flagged the wetlands in the vicinity of the driveway crossing for lots 1 and 2, as requested by the commission. His evaluation was emailed to Mr. Perkins on July 15th, along with the revised plans. And Mr. Cole's delineation is a reduction in the wetlands compared to Elizabeth Young's flagging in 1994 and reviewed in 1999. And I just want to point it out on the map to you. Actually, let me flip to a different plan. This is sheet 9, the wetlands crossing plan, and the bold line with the triangles on it is the new delineation, and what's highlighted in the yellow is the old delineation, so you can see that it has gotten smaller. You can also see in the colored print here, there's actually a little section of uplands that wasn't delineated like that before. In addition, while formalizing the culvert calculations for Mr. Perkins, I found an accidental error in them, and correcting it allowed me to make the box culvert smaller. So it's now proposed to be 3 feet wide by 2 feet high, and it will still pass the 100-year, 24-hour storm. Having a smaller culvert allowed me to reduce the grading and also the length of the culvert, so we end up with less wetlands disturbance. And between Mr. Cole's updated delineation and the revisions that I was talking about, the disturbance has been reduced to 2,872 square feet. This is a 54% reduction from the 6,278 square feet disturbance we started with. As I mentioned last time, According to the Connecticut Deep Natural Diversity Database, there are no state or federal listed species or critical habitats on the property. However, since there were questions about wildlife and vegetation, Ian Cole has joined us tonight, and at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to him.
Good evening. For the record, Ian Cole, professional soil scientist, professional wetland scientist out of Middletown, Connecticut. Since your last meeting, I was contacted by the applicant and by Giuliano Associates to provide an updated, focused wetland delineation at the crossing site and to provide a wetland impact analysis and report for the commission's wetland application to provide a complete application for the project. To that extent, I know the commission had the benefit of taking a site walk here. The property is 30 acres, it's wooded, it's at the end of Glenwood Road. There's two main wetland systems on the site. There's a forested wetland system, and the northwest side of the site, kind of outside of the development envelope. And then on the southeastern end of the site, we have a large forested wetland up here that constricts down to a narrow intermittent water course that kind of cascades off the property, exiting at the southern extents, draining to the Notch Hill Brook watershed. The crossing site, the proposed crossing site, kind of takes advantage of the natural lay of the land. If you took a site walk out there, Giuliano Associates, they staked the center line of the road, so it's pretty evident. This is an area where the topography kind of constricts down. You have this till upland area on either side of the wetland, and then you have a narrow water course. The water course in this area is roughly 3 feet wide. In my report dated July 10th to the commission, there's a couple of photos in the back that show the conditions of that water course. And I think there's a really good channel that really kind of shows like this is the functional part of the wetland that's got to be crossed. With the provided updates that Giuliano provided, with the 36-foot long three-sided box culvert, that's going to provide, stream bottom continuity. And the way it will be set into the ground and the way the driveway is constructed at grade and that natural constricted point, it's not going to provide a barrier to wildlife movement. It's not going to change the dynamics of the stream. So long-term impacts are kind of negated from the fact that you don't have to move that water course pretty much at all with that box culvert, which is a nice feature. As you can see, there's really no point to access lots 1 and 2 that would be less impactful than the one that's chosen. If you were to look at the whole site, crossing over here, you have a big wetland. Coming in over here, you get constricted from topography and you run out of room. So really, the crossing point that's chosen here is the best crossing point for feasibility and to limit your impacts to the wetlands. From a function and value standpoint, the crossing with the box culvert maintains the existing functions and values. The main part of the wetland up here, its primary function and value is groundwater recharge and discharge and flood flow attenuation. So you have, Clear Lake and West Lake north of this site, and you have the West Lake neighborhood kind of up here, and you have West Pond Road neighborhood over here. Then you have Glenwood Road subdivision over here. And then this is kind of all woods in the south all the way down to Route 1. So you have this big kind of forested corridor. This wetland up here acts as flood attenuation during storm events, but it's not impacted from any of the activity that's being proposed because this activity is downstream of that, and again, it's in the constricted part of the wetland, so it's not going to have any effect on the dynamics of it. So that's why it's preserving the long-term functions and values. Limited clearing, limited site work to construct there. So again, these are all reasons why this crossing point is the least impactful way to get access to those 2 rear lots. So with that being said, if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Oh, I will say one thing, going back to, sorry to cut you off real quick, related to wildlife, because I know there's concerns. So as Annette had stated, I also reviewed the natural diversity database. Now, that's not a catch-all to say, hey, there could be nothing on the site, but it's a notification. What I do is I look at the context of where it is. So if you look at this site, you'll see there's not only no NDDB polygons on this site, but they're all centered on the lakes that are north of here. So, I would surmise, doing lots of NDDB applications, that most of the species in this surrounding area are kind of tied to those lakes, have an affinity for those lakes. So they're probably more aquatic species or insect species. This is an interior forest. These areas don't have permanent standing bodies of water as those do up there. So, there's nothing of particular when you walk through this forest system that points out that, there's a rare soil type, there's a rare geological feature, there's some kind of vector there that would suggest, hey, there's rare threatened wildlife species in this area. It's general wildlife species, and I don't see any activities that are being proposed here that would have a negative effect on those generalists either.
Question, if I may. It's a good time for questions?
Yes.
When we walk the site, we notice basically just trap rock until.
Yeah.
Any Newark terrain, any sandstone, brownstone in that area at all?
Most of the stuff in here is basalt, so you
Yeah.
actually, the wetland soil types in here, so the deeper interior is this cat den Freetown soil. But the soils in here, I was actually surprised, the red parent material soil types. So it's that Minlow Wilbraham soil, and that comes off of that trap rock basalt type stuff.
Yeah.
So, there's, mineral content, but it's not like it's like trap rock ridgeline kind of stuff.
Okay, good. That's all I had.
All right. That central wetland that you were referring to? Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, it only shows on this map to the boundary of the property to the east.
Yeah, northeast, yeah, it extends off.
Yeah. Is there any drainage of that wetland in that direction? Or does it all go to downstream?
That's a good question. I don't know, like, I would have to look at a topographic map to see, but I would say for the most part, the drainage is through this system here.
Okay,
I would say that most of this, from my site walk that I took, which was just on this property, and I was focused more on this area because this is where all the activities are.
right.
To me, it looked like basically you have this flat basin in here that floods out, say, 1 foot to maybe 2 feet at most at peak season. And when it hits that 2 feet, it bleeds out for a certain period of time until, the water table recedes,
Yeah.
and then this cuts off. So,
Yeah.
dovetailing in just to wildlife, just with that being said, it's to have the understanding it doesn't provide like long-term finfish habitat or cold water fisheries or anything like of that nature.
No,
It's way too
Right.
ephemeral for any of that.
I agree. The forest, the surrounding forest, though,
Mhm.
does support wood turtles, box turtles. Those are the non-aquatic species, and I've seen them in there.
I would not doubt that the forest system in there could support turtles. Eastern box turtles, right, they can occur like throughout our forest system. They have more of an affinity for edge habitat and for more open habitat, which is lacking on this site. But, I wouldn't fall out of my
Yeah.
chair if someone told me there was an eastern box turtle there.
I digress there.
Yeah.
What I'd like to know, the water that fills that central wetland,
Mm-hmm.
where do you suspect the majority of that comes from?
Well, it's coming from the watershed that's south of West Lake Road, and it's coming from groundwater discharge also. So it's both surface water driven and groundwater driven.
Is it groundwater meaning springs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So because there's these soils so while you have this glacial till ridgeline that comes up here, the soils where it's wet, they're kind of sandy underneath.
Okay.
So you have basically, if you imagine these dense areas where you had till, then this is kind of like the sandy glacial fluvial outwash in between those, piles of dense till.
So would you agree that if one were to disturb the upland portions around this, would that have any effect on the
No, not with the distance that are being proposed. So if you see on this map,
No, I don't mean about, I have no problem with the culvert whatsoever.
yeah.
I'm talking about the wetland in itself. I mean, it's surrounded by higher areas.
By these activities? No, I mean, the limit that you're clearing, you're still providing a forested buffer that could attenuate any kind of runoff. You're not going to impact or change any of the groundwater dynamics to this wetland. You know, all these septic systems are approved by the health department. If you look at resource mapping, another thing that you kind of look at for sensitivities are like, is this an aquifer protection area? And it's not. You know, is this something that, you know, has any of those kind of high groundwater sensitivities? And it's not those conditions. These are pretty well sandy drain soils, and, you know, the topography, while there's some high points up here, like the grades down to the wetlands themselves are kind of gentle. And so, like, I don't see a condition here where, like, you know, even though you have steep grades on, say, lot 6, you know, I don't think you're gonna, like, create erosion issues that ever make it to that wetland
It'd
in
be
any way,
pretty
shape, or form.
hard to erode it considering it's all
It's all
rock.
rock.
It's all rock.
Yeah, you know, that's,
And there's very little soil on it.
yeah, you know,
Right.
so, yeah, from like a site control standpoint, you know, and ENS, I don't really think you're gonna get a lot of material moving on this site, so it's gonna kind of be in place when they do their construction.
Okay.
Are you gonna, the report that was submitted that talked about rare species habitat, which I believe you're gonna address?
Yes, that's
Did
what
you
we,
write it?
that's what we were just talking about. So for this project, one of the things that you do, a screening tool, is you go on the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, and you look at they have a screening tool. You put in the address, and it brings up a polygon of the site, and they reference that with all of the state historic records for known listed species. And the state has pre-mapped, you know, where they've had other records for other projects. And so, you know, while it's not a catch-all to say that there's nothing occurring on the property, what you look at is in the context of the landscape position. Like, are there a million other polygons nearby, like tied to some wetland that's tied to this? So none of those conditions are present on this property. Like I said, there are polygons to the north, but they're all centered around that clear pond, West Lake
Well,
kind of.
did you speak to anybody at Deep? Did you personally speak to anybody at Deep?
There's no one to speak to at Deep, so
Well,
to speak.
according to our minutes,
Yeah.
Resident Bonnie Semensky, who was here last week, she spoke to somebody at Deep, Jenny Dixon.
Yeah, she works at Deep, yep,
Okay,
she's a
And
wildlife
Jenny Dixon
analyst.
pointed out that adjacent to this property, there are federal and state listed species that are endangered, which you seem to be pushing off. But this tells me that adjacent to me means it's right next door, and unless something has changed, animals do move. And she specifically talked about a lizard, a specific lizard, a five-lined skink, which is an endangered species in Connecticut. So it doesn't seem to me that the homework has been done yet, because you have not reached out to Deep, because our resident has reached out to Deep, and they've identified endangered species adjacent to this property, which I'm concerned about.
We can contact Deep for that specific species,
Well, it needs to be
absolutely.
more than that specific species, because you've kind of just generically said, well, it's going to be by the ponds over here, but you really didn't dig deep into this property. You didn't do a site walk
The-
to see if there were.
Oh, I did
endangered
do,
species.
I did complete an on-site site walk for the
For endangered
delineation and to categorize and provide context for an ecological context of what's
So
out
what
there.
species did you identify?
What species, we didn't do a detailed natural resource inventory of the property. You know,
So you didn't look at.
I
what species, what
completed a
birds,
one-day
what-
field survey of the site,
that's
which
not
is kind of
sufficient.
industry, yeah, okay. We certainly can coordinate with Deep, you know, just for the commission's understanding, there's no formal permit trigger for that process. So typically for Deep to trigger a formal consultation to get a natural diversity database determination letter, you need to have a state permit trigger. So in this instance, if you had, say, more than 5 acres of disturbance, which I imagine you don't, you would have no state permit trigger to require an actual determination. Now, we could reach out to them for their consultation to see if they would informally provide us with a list. Because so what you typically do on a project, right? You have a state permit trigger, you contact DEEP, you ask them to review your project, they spit you out a list of, hey, there could be these 7 species on your project. Now go do a survey for them and tell us what best management practices you're gonna put with the project so that you don't have an adverse impact or an adverse take for that species.
So can you do that?
Well, we could reach out to them, but the problem is they may not respond. A lot of times you get a response back of, we only review state permit triggers. So if that being the case, I would never know what the off-site species are, because they would never provide you with a
If a
list.
resident can reach out and speak to DEEP and get
Again,
consultation with them,
That's
you can't?
with respect, I was gonna say, I am not in disagreement that someone had a conversation with Jenny Dixon and she had said this and all that exists. That totally could be the case. Totally can do a survey for that specific, but that's anecdotal, off bar information, but I'm not disagreeing with it.
Wouldn't call it anecdotal, because it says it's an adjacent.
I understand someone had a
So
conversation,
that's
but
not anecdotal.
unless the letter came from DEEP specifically, and I'm gonna say, I take it at face value. I agree with you. I'm not being argumentative.
Yeah, because my concern is, you've pointed out there's endangered species, you yourself said there's endangered species in the wetlands adjacent to
Yeah, I
this
said that,
property.
yeah, just to be clear, the publicly available data that one would go and review show that they're off-site polygons. It doesn't show that there's anything on this site proper.
But endangered species are not fixed, they
Sure.
move.
Also, just to your point real quick, if the concern is that there's species up here, just for context, this wetland and all the area that's being affected is draining away from those areas of concern, irregardless, right? So let's say there's something up here. All these activities are A, they're not draining in those directions. B, they would still meet all these activities, all the BMPs that the state would require. Because basically what the state would come back, under the worst case conditions, they would say, maintain a 100-foot separation distance from the activity to that specific wetland. And that's happening in all the cases up in these areas, with the exception of the crossing, which is, again, downstream of the whole discussion.
Well, can we request, if this resident was able to reach out to DEEP and speak to someone there, can you please reach out to DEEP and speak to someone there and get some type of answer from them?
I am not opposed to reaching,
Preferably
no
in writing.
one's opposed to reaching out to DEEP.
Yeah, because I just don't buy it that you can't talk to them. And if they're concerned about endangered species, because it seemed to me that it's more than one based on your information and this our residents' information, we need to understand what all these species are and what the risks are to them. And that's a requirement of our commission, that's in our regulations.
Frank, I just want to, for the record, where was that letter? Was that
It's in the
presented?
minutes.
I must-
So there's 2 letters. There's a document that they submitted
Yeah, I see
that's
that.
dated July 10th.
Mhm.
And in that, on July 10th, under rare species habitat,
Okay.
they state that they did an online survey, at least that's how I interpret it. They went
Okay.
online and looked at a database. And then at our last public meeting, if you look at the minutes,
Mhm.
that weren't approved, but nobody's, I don't think there's, Miss Bonnie Saminsky of 50 West Pond Road
Right.
stated she reached out to DEEP because she was concerned, and she spoke to Jenny Dixon, and that the DEEP said that there were state and federal listed species adjacent to the area.
Very good.
So,
That's Bonnie right over there.
there you are. So, okay, you're Bonnie, hi Bonnie. So, I think it's something you need to look at.
Hi, my name is Tim Lee. I'm an attorney with an address of 107 Monowee Street in Branford. I represent the applicant. I actually was here on this matter, but I wasn't going to speak to the issue that you just raised. But with respect to what Mr. Cole was saying, I think the commission's getting a little bit beyond what their jurisdiction is. So the jurisdiction is not to protect endangered species, which may be on another property. The commission has jurisdiction over inland wetlands on our property. If we're doing something to the inland wetlands which would impact or affect the ability of a species who relies upon the wetlands for their survival, then I think the commission has the right to regulate that application. If we're talking about endangered species that may be off on another piece of property, I think at that point in time, the commission's kind of going beyond what they're tasked with doing.
I disagree. Do you have a copy of our regulations? Because our regulations specifically state that we can ask for information about endangered species.
I
And
think-
unless you know something that animals do not move and they stay stationary,
So-
adjacent means it could go on that property and that should be looked at.
I appreciate that animals can travel, but I think when you're evaluating the wetlands application, you're gonna evaluate whether anything on this project is impacting the wetlands in such a way that it would impact one of the endangered species. So I think that should be the focus of the analysis, not whether endangered species exist on another property. I'm sure that they may, and I don't think we're arguing that they don't, but the real question is there anything that is activity that's occurring on this property with regard to the wetlands that would affect those species' ability to survive and
Well,
live?
that's all we're asking is for this gentleman to reach out to DEEP, like our resident did, speak to DEEP, ask them for a letter and clarification on endangered species that are within or adjacent to this property. That is not a tough ask.
But the further caveat is that they would need to make a determination as to something that is happening on this site is affecting the habitat for those endangered species in such a way that they cannot
But building
survive.
the construction of the homes could be endangering them.
For the record, again, Hinkle, just for the commission, I don't know, this is a copy of the Connecticut Deep Natural Diversity Database map, and it's hard to see here, and I'll submit it for the record. There's a little red circle, that's our project site, and the reason I'm showing this is for context. So these polygons are the known locations or other stuff, and like I was saying, there's known populations to the north of this site and to the east side, and as I stated for the record, this site drains to the south. So, the wetlands in this site, the site work, everything is draining away from those areas, but, I'm just putting it for,
Can I
for
see
context.
it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's so hard to see, it's like a Where's Waldo contest.
So this is the red circle.
The red
and
circle's
this is the
us.
polygon.
Those are the polygons, so like the west ponds up here.
But all
Clear
this,
Pond.
all this is the polygon, right?
Yeah, and then this is to the east.
So if
And then you can
this,
see these areas around the lake up here.
right, so if this is the polygon we're talking about, and this is right next door to it, it's adjacent. So the request to have you contact DEEP is not unreasonable and is within our jurisdiction to ask.
We're not being argumentative, but I think if you're saying building a house may cause an impact to endangered species, that may be true. But once again, this is the Wetlands Commission, and you're charged with evaluating the application as it may impact the wetlands.
But this is part of the information we need from the state. So if he could please get that information, that would be helpful. We asked nicely.
You did ask nicely, I'm not gonna dispute.
So I don't think we
dispute
need
that.
any more discussion. We've asked, give
So-
the information.
And what I've heard from Ian is that he may not be able to get you asked nicely, he may not be able to get you that information, because as he explained, that when you go to DEEP, and he explained the process that you go through to get the information from DEEP, DEEP does not generally give that information in letter format that you're requesting.
But our resident called up and spoke with them. You can't speak to them?
Well, you asked for a letter, though, you asked nicely for a letter, you didn't ask for.
Well, can you call and see what you
Yeah,
can
I mean, I
get?
have to, so as a consultant, I have to go through a formal process, I have to get formal documentation. Listen, if they're willing to review it, absolutely, we can reach out to Ms. Dickinson directly, or her supervisors, or whoever. So, not opposed to that at all. I'm just explaining to the commission what the traditional path is.
I hear you.
And like how one would go about, if you had a permit process that you needed to fulfill, right?
Yeah.
So in most of these instances,
Yeah, go ahead.
So
I defer to you.
just talk about the database and when it comes into play from a state DEEP point of view.
yeah.
Why it's there and how it's used.
Sure, so how it's used is basically anytime you have a state or federal permit trigger, one is required to do a series of consultations. And most permits these days are tied to at least doing some level of consultation with rare, threatened, endangered species. So the state has a database of every known record that dates back 100 years plus of where they have vectors for things where they suspect they do. So if you have a project that requires a permit, one would go on the Natural Diversity Database preliminary assessment tool. They would do a screening of the site. It would determine quickly if your site has a conflict or if it doesn't. Typically speaking, if there's no polygon on your site directly, you'll get back a letter that says, you're clear.
And so that's for a state triggered.
Right.
There is no
So
private
even a stormwater
trigger.
permit, so even what Jenny Dixon said, and I'm not being argumentative at all, so please don't take it this way.
No.
Even what Jenny Dixon said and if you were to submit, let's say you had 5 acres of disturbance on this site and you had to submit your stormwater permit, it's been my experience, you would get a clearance letter because it already shows that there's nothing here. Does that mean that deep won't come? I don't know. But one would suspect on all the projects that I've worked on that it would come back as, yeah, there's no known record.
Okay, anybody, do you have a question?
Yeah, this is, I guess, more of a practical question. The question's been raised by Dr. Pagano, and would just answering that question, either informally, if possible, or formally, would it unduly delay the start or approval of this project in any way, shape, or form? I mean, if we're only talking another couple of weeks, what's the big deal?
Yeah, no, I mean, you could reach out to them. So to your point, I don't really know the answer to that, but I guess to somewhat answer your point, I guess the way I see this problem, I totally respect and understand the commission wanted to get information on rare, threatened, endangered species. I think globally, if I was to look at this, I would say, no matter what your answer you get back, nothing really changes. Because, all of the BMPs that DEEP would probably recommend would say, limit your wetlands disturbance, which the project's doing by having a constructed crossing point down in a part of the wetland that's not very sensitive, right? It's just this narrow crossing, and not to denigrate it, but it's the historic crossing point that people have been riding unauthorized ATVs through. The entire neighborhood kind of like informally walks through this area. It's good, and again, because the topography lends itself to walk through there. DEEP would come back and say, in the most strict circumstances, they would say a time of year restriction, don't construct during, breeding season for this. We could adopt the best management practices for that specific species as an order of condition. And what they would basically do is you could say, your silt fence is not only E&S control, it's also exclusionary fencing. The time of your restriction for this, I don't know off the top of my head what 5, because quite honestly, they're very uncommon, which is why they're trap rock stuff. Right, so there's a seasonal window specific to when they're breeding, right? So let's just say it's tied to vernal. It would be, the springtime, maybe they don't do construction activities in the wetland in a specific spot if there was a sensitive spot that was identified by DEEP. Limit clearing, the project's already doing all those things. Don't have stormwater basins, that could act as decoy pools. The project's got input. So the project already kind of meets all the performance standards that would be baked into a response. So that's why I think even if you went through this long-winded exercise, I think you might get back information, but you're not gonna get back a changed design for what it's worth.
The only thing I would offer, and we're gonna say something?
No, go right ahead.
No, the only thing I would offer is, I think the commission's been very gracious as far as being receptive to input. I mean, the site walk was very informative. I don't think there's any desire by anybody to unduly delay the work unless we would absolutely have cause to do so. It's just information, it's just let's get the information, see where it goes.
So,
What's wrong with that?
good. So
My
let's-
concern, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my concern as a resident has raised that concern, and I think we should respect that individual's concern for the species, and if there's one endangered species, there can be others. And our regulations do talk about endangered species, and if she did identify an endangered species, she did bring it to our attention, and I think we have a responsibility as a commission to respect her request and look into it. And that's all we're asking you, as my colleague said, is just reach out and talk to this lady and see what you can find out.
It's information. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, you know, can do, will do.
If we're done on that point, I have a question for the engineer.
Sure.
So I guess, Annette, is it a question for you? You know, it's the revised sampling, that your findings allowed for the reduced size of the culvert, and you said that the reduced size will handle the 100-year floods. Lately, we seem to be getting 500-year floods. Has anybody noticed that? But despite the point, is there an opportunity perhaps for additional value engineering, or you're not looking at that? The culvert is what you're locked in on, correct, at this point? Is that the best solution?
It is. I'm not sure that we're even required to pass as large of a storm as we are. However, I would not be comfortable making it much smaller, just for things, you know, like debris
Sure,
getting
sure.
hung up and
Okay.
things like that. I mean, I'm happy we were able to reduce it from the 6 foot by 3 foot that we had. It definitely was good for the grading. But no, at this
That's
point,
all
I
I had.
think we've reached the
Yeah,
best
thank
solution.
you.
Sure.
You were gonna say something.
Yeah, I've got a number of questions. Not to belittle the site walk, but it was a little bit unorganized. The groups kind of split up, and I didn't particularly get a good explanation of a couple of things. One of them, and I think it was written in your revised, I'm trying to read it on my phone, so I really couldn't read it well, but there was something about a change to one of the driveway approaches to one of the houses. Am I correct?
There were a few things with driveways. I moved the driveway to lot 3, which is this short driveway here. Not that it has any wetlands impact one way or the other, but I just moved it over a little bit just to reduce the grading. That was the only reason for that change. The other change to the driveway is the driveway that goes through the wetlands. I put a cross slope on it and proposed a swale, so that
Which one is that?
the one to lots 1 and 2 that goes through the wetlands?
You're talking about that goes through the crossing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I just put a cross slope on that with a swale along the side so that any runoff from the driveway would filter through that swale before it reached the wetlands. And the only other change I did with the driveways, although I did this before the last meeting, was there's a rule that you can only have 2 houses on one driveway. I think that pertains to rear lots, which is not necessarily what we have here, but just to be safe, I did split it up, so we have one driveway that goes to lots 5 and 6, and lot 4 now has its own driveway. So we're complying with that, just in
And that
case.
driveway is paralleling, or it's right next to, is there a median between them, or?
Just some grass in between, they're pretty
Okay.
close to the same elevation.
So the driveway then going to lot 4, there was one of the driveways that we walked to and followed the flags, and it went over a cliff. It literally went over a
That's why I didn't
cliff.
go with you.
And I crawled down that cliff, and then it goes up on the other side to the house. You know what I'm referring to?
I think it was probably lot 4.
It is lot 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that the contours on the plan actually match what we saw in the field. The contours on the plan came from,
It's LiDAR topography that we field truth with survey information.
right,
Yeah.
It seemed to me from walking it that that driveway went to lot 5, to that house. Now, I could be entirely mistaken, but,
They are pretty close to each other.
yeah, but one of them, like I said, it went over a steep cliff and up the other side, and was that intended to be filled?
Let me just
Because
check.
no driveway could go, there'd be a roller coaster ride.
Oh,
what I'm
absolutely.
talking
I mean,
about.
we're not proposing any steep slopes, excessively
Well,
steep slopes.
my
in the
concern
driveway.
is, I don't care about how steep the driveway might be for the homeowner. What I am concerned about is at the bottom of the proposed driveway path, that's actually a drainage swale. There's plenty of evidence in there that in high, with heavy rains, water actually runs through there. So if that were to be filled, the water's gonna be backed up somewhere. On the map, it looks like from the topography, it goes to 4, but from the walk, it seemed like it went to 5.
Sorry. Needs a bigger pledge on
Of next year.
it. No, it's not in the budget. So this is the plot plan for lot 4. I mean, there definitely is a knob here, which does require some grading. We're, not going into any upland review area or anything.
No, I understand that, but in order for that, for what I saw to work, it would require a lot of filling, not grading off the top.
If we're holding off until next meeting anyway, I would be happy to run a profile through the driveways for you, so you can see the cut fill.
Okay.
I'd like to see that.
The other thing too is that I felt, and that was why I came, asked certain questions about the high grounds and how much water from there. I mean, most of the high grounds, especially lot, I believe it's 4, could be 5 as well. Those 2 lots, they're up on top of ledge, I mean, the trap rock hills. And when a lot of excavating, or whatever amount of excavating up there is done, that's gonna affect the sheet flow down into other areas, particularly the wetlands. But I don't necessarily think that that's a big problem there, nor do I think that one of the worst-looking lots, lot 6, there the water flow is going to be going in 2 different directions, some of it towards the driveways and the wetlands, and some of it's gonna be going towards, in the other direction, it's gonna be going, southwest. So I don't see that developing lot 6 is gonna be a major problem. But it seems to me that due to the location of the cul-de-sac, that this project is going to require, I think it's extreme disturbances in order to reach, when you come off that cul-de-sac and you head to the right to the water crossing, you've literally got to take out a rock hill in there, correct? And then you have to do a lot of grading to soften the slope going down to the water crossing, which will cross over. As you know, there's an existing road in there that's been there longer than I've been around, and that's a long time, all right? It seems to me that a lot of the disturbances on this whole parcel could be avoided if we were to utilize the existing road in there to some part or another. And I know that if you move the cul-de-sac, it's going to mean loss of a parcel. But that brings me to the paper road. It's still a big question as to whether the paper road is going to pass. I first thought about the paper road and I kept saying, well, this isn't really a wetlands issue. This is more a zoning thing with the town. But after giving it a lot more thought, I really do think it's a wetlands issue, because what is a paper road? A paper road really is just on paper. It doesn't really exist. But if the pathway is there, if that pathway belongs to lot number 6, what's to stop somebody in the future, maybe somebody with a lot of political clout, maybe somebody with whatever it takes to bend some rules? I mean, pathways can develop. You know, one good example, the Boston Post Road. That was once probably a deer trail, turned into an animal, turned into a Native American pathway, and then a carriage drive, and then an automobile road, and look what Route 1 is today, from Maine to Florida. Could this paper road turn into a driveway? What could happen with the paper road? If the paper road is not accepted, either by wetlands or possibly not accepted by planning and zoning, then that changes your whole project. You're gonna lose a lot, correct?
If that access was not approved, we
If
would
that
lose it.
access was not approved, you're down to 5 homes. So, I guess we really need to find out whether that's going to be approved and whose job it is to approve it or to not approve it. Maybe you
So,
can,
That's actually why I was here.
yeah, there you go.
Do you want me to address
I
any of the
I had a
other things?
feeling that was the case.
Yeah, so I'm new to the project, and Dave did join me today, and I discussed with the applicant on Monday, so we're aware of the issue with regard to the road for Lot 6.
It is not a paper street.
And we believe it's a zoning issue, not necessarily a wetlands issue. I understand your statements to the contrary. So I think ultimately it's gonna be up to the Planning and Zoning Commission to determine whether that access complies with the subdivision regulations or doesn't comply with the subdivision regulations. And if the Planning and Zoning Commission finds that that access is not consistent with their regulations, then we're gonna be back before you or that lot would be eliminated. And, however, as we stand here today.
You said that lot would be eliminated.
Well,
That lot doesn't necessarily have to be the elimination lot.
Agreed, I
Okay.
agree. But I guess ultimately, it's Planning and Zoning Commission has to determine whether this plan as designed right now complies with the subdivision regulations or does not comply with the subdivision regulations. And I think they're the entity that ultimately makes that determination when this application is before them. They're going to approve it or they're going to deny it. I understand the applicant's design. I understand I received a call from the town planner today who expressed concerns about that design, but ultimately it's the Planning and Zoning Commission that's going to make that decision. So we're just asking you to evaluate the plan as you see it today based on the impact to the wetlands as it's designed, and then assuming we get through the Wetlands Commission, we'll take our chances with Planning and Zoning. If Planning and Zoning disagrees with our position, then we'll have to figure out how to redesign the plan to lose a lot.
However, if we approve this, right, then we're blessing this for planning and zoning to put in the road there, correct?
You're blessing it from Planning and Zoning to put in the cul-de-sac road.
Yeah, but
That
I'm
wasn't
talking
planning.
about
No,
that's what I think we're concerned about.
Well,
but no, so,
I'm concerned about it because I'm not really happy about a lot of things on this, and one is just the disturbances to get to Lot 2, and I'm not talking about the brook crossing, I'm fine with that, I've seen a lot worse than that, this is good, but to get over to the brook crossing, you're taking out a huge rock hill, excavating that to have the driveway go over there, and you have to fill in then to get down to the crossing. There's much easier ways to get there, but the fact is that the cul-de-sac is put in, I understand why the cul-de-sac was situated there. It was situated there to conform with a regulation that requires no more than 1,000 feet. Cul-de-sac can not be more than 1,000 feet from the nearest intersection. And that's where you placed it, correct?
I'll defer to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if that cul-de-sac were allowed to go in another 80 to 100 feet, you would be able to use the existing road in there, which is stable, and you would have to make road improvements, but you could use the existing road in there to gain access to the crossing and lot 1 and 2, and also to go north to lots 4, 5, and 6, without doing a major excavation at the base of lot 6. That's complete rock hill, that's not very stable. If you look at it, it's all boulders. You saw
Yeah, I
it,
thought,
right.
no, exactly.
So
Yeah.
you have to, the way you have that, you have a major excavation at the bottom of 6 in order to have driveways going up to 4 and 5, and you have a major excavation to get the road over to the crossing. Whereas if the cul-de-sac went in a little bit further, you got easy access to everything with far less disturbance. And that's my position on this, but in that case, if you had to eliminate a lot, and I think you will if the paper, well, you definitely will if the paper road is not accepted, then my suggestion would be to eliminate lot 3 and not lot 6, because I think most people would think lot 6 should go because it's a crazy lot. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's doable. As you know, you designed it.
So I appreciate the comments, and I understand where you're coming from, and we'll see what happens down the road. In terms of the issue with the driveways, I'll defer to Annette and Ian, but I think ultimately the issue is, does any of that activity impact the wetland? And if the activity that you're describing, that you're concerned about,
Well-
doesn't impact the wetland, then I'm not sure it impacts the site, but it may not impact the wetland, and therefore it's not problematic from your commission's
But
perspective.
I do think it affects, I think all the disturbance does affect the wetlands and maybe creates more wetlands.
Yep. So I will
Yeah.
not answer that question, because I'm not
Right.
capable of answering that question, but I do have Ian and Annette here, and maybe
Yeah.
that's a question that's better
But I mean-
suited for them to answer.
Okay. So, my thought is though, if you're removing a rock mountain, it's gonna change the,
What exactly are they removing? I didn't see that.
over here.
The base of it I saw.
This is a big rock mountain over here, which they're gonna cut right through and then grade, then level,
Oh.
change the grade to get down to the
Yeah,
stream.
okay.
And the other one is at the bottom of lot 6, whereas that could be moved away from the bottom of lot 6 and not.
The subdivision
Yeah.
could be designed a million different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And there are disturbances. There's grading. There's always grading unless you have a completely flat site, which clearly this is not. We went on the site walk. These are some of the reasons that we are only proposing 6 houses on 30.9 acres. We are trying to be respectful of the wetlands and the upland review area. I mean, other than the crossing for the driveway, we're really not even in the upland review area. And as Ian mentioned, we're holding that silt fence as the clearing limit. It's not a lot of clearing when you look at the size of the lot. And also, the disturbances are so far away from the wetlands that they're not gonna have any impact on the wetlands. I can understand your concern, but, as Attorney Lee mentioned, it's not impacting the wetlands. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
Oh, no, sure. So I guess, one thing I would say, kind of like looking at this project, right, from a civil standpoint. So the upland areas where there are activities, and a lot of these areas, especially in this zone, right, you have this ridge line of trap rock and shallow soil. So the soil type throughout here is a holyoke soil. It's a shallow soil that's basically over bedrock that you can peel apart with a big machine. Okay, so I would argue, like, while there's some cuts in through here, the ground is very much stable in the fact that it is all rock. So by virtue, the ground is just kind of hard compacted. So I think you have hard civil work, but the civil work is manageable in the fact that you don't have highly erodible soils. It's kind of everything is in place. And the activities, as it's saying, they're over 100 feet. The bulk of them are over 100 feet away from all the wetland boundaries proper. So, you could take this hillside down, and I don't think you're going to create a wetland. And the reason for that is this is
Which
lot
hillside
6.
are you?
Lot 6 right here, so they gotta hammer out a lot of rock for lot 6 to
to come in for the driveway.
Yeah.
So if the concern is, hey, is this excavation gonna expose some groundwater seep that then floods out the area? I don't think that's the case. Now, I hear what you're saying, that there's concentrated flow, but that's from the surface being compacted and hard. So you have surface runoff concentrated into those rocky areas because of the topography. But once this is kind of hammered out and you get this terrace built in here, and they excavate that down, it's not like you're gonna expose some groundwater seep. There's really kind of not a big watershed, right? If you got this knob that's kind of sitting in between these wetland areas, and those are the areas that they'll wind up developing. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, no, I
To
understand
some-
what
to
you're
some degree,
saying.
yeah.
I can't argue with you on that. It's just.
Yeah, I guess like to what you're saying is like the type of site work here is just, I think it's just hard ground because the ground's armored, but there's nothing here that's like extraordinary that you haven't seen built around. I mean, you know, there's a big subdivision around this that dealt with the same issues. It was the same type of site work. But it's not like you're, you know, rolling up on a site and it's deadpan flat and it's all sands.
So are we all in agreement that the paper road is not a wetlands issue? Can we, I mean, I would
think it's a
definitely,
question.
if we were to approve this,
It becomes a not wetlands issue, I would think, if we approve it. Unless we put a caveat in there,
Well,
a
I think
restriction in there, that if a road goes in there, it has to come back to,
I think we should
Here.
put in there, since it's only a paper road, put in there a caveat that
Can I
nothing
just
can go through
point
there.
something out, because I pointed it out last time too. It is not a paper road. A paper road implies that the right-of-way is gonna belong to the town, you're just not building a road through it. It is not wide enough for a road. It is a 25-foot strip. It's never intended to be a road, have a road, it's not even intended to have a driveway. It's a 25-foot access strip to lot 6, which we're not proposing a driveway through. And if in the future someone did, I don't see why they would, if they did, they'd have to cross wetlands. They would have to come back to you.
so just to be, excuse me, so just to be clear, this road is not gonna be, there's nothing there today, other than the lines on that piece of paper, right?
Correct.
And you don't intend on putting anything there, so if
Nothing.
it's all wild brush and trees, et cetera,
And
we're gonna,
wetland.
in wetland, it's gonna stay wild brush and tree and
Nothing
wetland,
is undisturbed state.
undisturbed state,
So why is
Yes.
it on the map?
So how do you?
right?
Why is it even here? Why even put it on the map? Sorry.
Oh,
It-
To give 6 lots.
It's there because there's a rule that says on a dead-end cul-de-sac street, you can only have 12 lots with sole access to that street, sole access. With the existing lots that have access to Glenwood, there are 7. With the addition of the 6, we'd have 13, which is too many, having sole access. So lot 6 technically has dual access. Access doesn't necessarily mean a driveway, it means it has frontage. And it has frontage on 2 streets. Lot 6 has frontage on Glenwood and West Pond. It's like if you build a lot on if you build a house on a corner lot, you're not putting a driveway out to both streets, you're putting it out to one. So this lot 6, is gonna have a house with a driveway to Glenwood. It still has access to West Pond Road, but we're not proposing a driveway there.
But isn't the intent of that, the reason why that regulation is in place, is the intent that, God forbid, emergency vehicles need to get in there, they have an access way of getting in there. That's how I understood the regulations to be, that our fire trucks and police and ambulances would have an access way to get to that lot. That's why the regulation's in place. Because if it's not cleared, right, and they don't have access, then what's the point of having the regulation?
Right, so it's a planning and zoning issue.
I understand that.
And they're not proposing any activities in the wetland.
Yeah, but then when it goes to planning and zoning, if they say that they have to put a piece of dry road in there, right? They can't put it in until they come back to us
Of
and get our
course.
approval.
Correct.
Well, I hope
But-
that's the case, because it hasn't followed through that way lately.
Well,
They better come back.
of course they will.
You don't know that.
I don't think they will. I
Well,
honestly don't believe they
Frank,
will.
I'm here to ensure and tell you that indeed they will.
Well,
The,
down the road, I don't think they will. That's my issue with this. I don't think they'll
The-
come back.
the other thing too is, I don't know if we can do a tentative approval depending on the decision of the access to West Pond Road. I'll refrain from saying paper road.
I appreciate that.
Short answer is, I don't think you can do a tentative decision. I think you can make a decision on this application, and then if we go to planning and zoning, and planning and zoning approves it, then we're off to the races. If planning and zoning says, no, we don't buy the argument that that 25-foot strip is considered an access, then we have to reconfigure the plan in some regard.
Well,
See, I think we're like in a catch-22 here. Because if planning and zoning approves it, right, and then you come back to us and we say, no way, then what happens?
Then it
That-
dies, yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it has to be resolved before it goes to planning and zoning. And it's not getting resolved because you're not addressing the wetlands there.
Listen, we would love to get it resolved, the planning and zoning, but the problem is the statute requires us to come to wetlands first and to get a decision by the Wetlands Commission before Planning and Zoning
Right.
Commission can act upon the
Well,
application.
And if we give it the decision, that gives you carte blanche to destroy the wetlands.
Oh, well, I think that is not true at all.
Oh, I don't
I think
agree.
if you give us an approval, it gives us the ability to go to planning and zoning and present the application.
So we can always put a caveat on the approval that says, no work in that strip.
no development of that strip, if that is written into our approval, that helps.
Yeah.
The thing that I would like is if that doesn't go through, I'd like the whole project to be reevaluated.
Well,
And not just
it would-
somebody
if you're
saying,
gonna-
well, we'll knock off this lot or that lot.
Right, I mean, we're not there yet, so, I mean, obviously, we're here with this plan. If we get approval, we'll go to planning and zoning. If planning and zoning ultimately denies us because they don't agree with our interpretation of the regulation, we would have to reconfigure the plan. We may be able to reconfigure the plan in such a way that has no impact on the wetlands, and therefore, don't think we would need to come back to this commission. On the other hand, it could theoretically be redesigned in such a way that would have a different impact to wetlands, in which case we would have to come back to you.
You have to appreciate that we here deal with as many violations as we do applications.
Yep. No,
And there's nothing to stop the owner of Lot 6 to make a path, to put his mailbox out there, however they want to do it, then you know what paths turn into.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I appreciate the commission's concern, and I'm the attorney for the applicant, so I have to represent the applicant's concern. And the
I
applicant,
understand.
it's time and it's money to redesign a plan and present it to a wetlands commission, and especially if it's a revision to a plan that's not gonna have an impact on the wetlands. So hypothetically speaking, we go to planning and zoning, they deny the application. We may just be able to merge one lot into another lot, and without it having any impact on the wetlands. And therefore, I don't think it'd be something that would implicate your jurisdiction. On the other hand, if we redesigned the plan in some other way and it proposed impacts to the wetlands, then I think we would be subject to your jurisdiction.
well, okay, before I can make any decision on this, I have to understand the driveways going to 4 and 5. All right, we spoke about that already. And, again, if one lot has to be eliminated, I
Well, we
just,
can't assume a lot's gonna be eliminated.
Well,
We
if
have to
they-
assume-
only if it's not,
That's what I mean, if we approve this,
Right.
we're approving that emergency access, because it's not gonna come back to us. I'm sorry, I don't,
I agree- I
based
agree
on our
with you.
years of experience
And-
here, it will never come back to us.
I think what Attorney Lee is saying is true, though. I mean, if for some reason this did not get approved at planning and zoning, and it resulted in us having to eliminate a lot, we would either end up with the same wetlands disturbance that you approved, or less. I mean, I don't see why we would propose fewer lots with more wetlands disturbance. It's just not likely.
no,
Agree.
but
And if we did, we would have to come back.
See, I don't see this getting disapproved what I see is it getting approved. And then somewhere down the road, this access road, or even in planning and zoning, they put in there that that access road has to be developed. Because you're gonna have to show this to the fire marshal in planning and zoning, are you not? So if I'd be shocked if fire marshal says, it's okay, you don't have to have a separate access to this development. I would be shocked. He's gonna say it. So then we've all of a sudden approved it.
But you haven't. You've approved, you approved a permit to conduct regulated activities that we proposed in this plan, and right now, we're not proposing any regulated activities in that
Then
25-foot
then
strip.
erase that, erase it, take it out.
Well, you know, we can't do that
Well,
because.
then it's in there, it's in the plan.
But what activity is being proposed right now in that 25-foot strip? We're not proposing any
You're not
regulated
proposing,
activity.
but can we actually regulate that no activity takes place in that strip?
I don't see
Well,
how
well,
you can.
right.
We can condition it because
I
it's
mean-
not on the plan. If it's one of your fears, we can condition it. It's not on the plan, we just state it, that's all.
Yeah, but then who's gonna follow up on that happens?
Well, Frank, we just talked about violations, right?
I know,
mean,
but-
how are you gonna stop a
but-
violation ahead of time?
You can't.
Well, you can't, right?
No.
But you can put it on the plan, which is a heads
Yeah,
up
but
saying,
then the
don't do it.
violation happens and then it's, what are you gonna do? It's too late, it's done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the concern.
Go ahead.
I think it's one thing to have a violator who may fill a swath of wetlands or a little piece of wetlands here. If somebody's making a driveway out of that, and I think the town's gonna know, it's not something that's gonna be hidden or secret. I think people are gonna complain about it.
It's 25 feet wide this way.
Nobody will see it.
You don't think so?
Trust me, nobody will see it.
I think a swath that big, somebody would see. But that being said, you can't presume the violation anyway. And
No,
we're- and
you
we're not
can't.
proposing any activity in that area, so we'll,
I think we just do it, like you said, a condition. We do it as a condition, that if this approves, that nothing can be done there unless it comes back here.
Let me ask a question, though. Let's just assume, for grins and giggles, that somebody decides, yeah, I do want to put a road through there. We're talking where the green is, the very bottom of that, correct? Right?
Yes, this is the strip right here.
And we're looking at what, 25 feet wide?
There's more.
And, well, yeah, but you identified it 25 feet wide, and there's two little sections here and there that would be affected by any such thing.
Correct.
All right, and then the lateral distance would be what, maybe 50 feet here and 10 feet there?
Of the wetlands?
Yeah, if, let's say somebody plowed a road through there, gravel road or something, are we talking 50 feet here and maybe 12 feet there? Or
Oh, no, you're
More than that, right?
Driveway through there, I guess about like 4,000 square feet of wetlands disturbance in that ballpark. Between the two crossings, the two new ones,
Yeah,
we were going to West Pond? Yeah.
This is 800
I
feet
mean, we have
right
over
from here to
2,000
here.
here.
And
Those are
yeah,
even
yeah,
longer.
okay.
You're gonna have
On the
more.
West Pond Road, with how many people walk up and down
Yeah.
that, they would see it day one, the backhoe pulling out onto that road.
well, the plans as presented, I mean, there's a term in environmental, it's called FONSI, some of you may know about it, finding of no significant impact, right? So, I mean, is this a FONSI situation, or is it, this is theoretical stuff, or we're just trying to be prudent here?
I'm sorry, finding of what?
Finding of no significant impact. I mean, these are legitimate concerns, I just wanna know, are we making a mountain out of a molehill or not? I don't know, you tell me.
Well, I know based on my experience with our town, if the fire marshal says that they need to put that piece in, it's gonna have to be significantly cleared, because they do not like the brush and trees, et cetera, to scrape against the fire trucks. It's a hazard. So it's gonna be a significant
Yeah.
clearance. Because
But-
where I live, we have to maintain a road like that. It's not grass, but it's an
We got
access.
cited once too.
And we got cited because the fire department came and said that the trees would overhang too much and it would hit the trucks. And that's where I'm coming from. And I can't believe, again, I'm sorry to repeat, that the fire marshal's gonna approve this without putting.
And-
you may be 100% right. The fire marshal may say, I'm not gonna bless this plan unless that is a paved access. And if that's the case, we can't build out the plan because we don't have wetlands approval to put in paved access on that strip.
It's
You
no
could-
accesses.
You couldn't even do dirt access unless you did a significant filling. I mean, the
Correct.
ATVs can't get through there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It would require us to come back before the commission and ask for a permit to do that. So
And then
we
we-
could be arguing about something that is never
I know.
going to happen, because ultimately planning and zoning may not agree with our interpretation, or the fire marshal may say, I want paved access, or, you know.
My problem with this whole thing is that if you do lose a lot, then the configuration of this project involves a lot more disturbance than what's necessary. And whether that disturbance affects the wetlands or not, I'm just not smart enough to know that, but it could.
Right, but we're looking at the plan in front of us. That's what we're here to approve tonight, or not approve.
Let's just put a condition in the approval that they cannot do anything on that strip unless it comes back to wetlands. And that's the way it would be presented to planning and zoning, correct?
Yeah,
And then planning and zoning then's gonna have to deal with it and kick it back,
We put it right in there,
as the fire marshal will have to.
that way it's in there.
right.
Again, God forbid, they need to have two accesses. That means those people are really isolated up there possibly.
So, was the public meeting?
No, we're still in
We're
public,
still in
we're still in
public
open meeting, yeah.
Right.
Do you guys have
And-
anything else you wanna talk about?
I don't,
If we close the public meeting, we don't have to make a decision right at this moment. I would suggest we go into executive session.
All right, well, at first, let's see, we're still in a public meeting. Ma'am, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I live next to.
Can you come up and state your name?
Sure. My name is Bonnie Szymanski. I live at 50 West Pond Road, which is adjacent to the paper road. That area is wooded. It used to be an orchard. Right at the back of it are a lot of coyotes. I know that when I've left my house, bobcats run back into that area, and
It's all true.
there's a lot of wildlife there. So I know that years ago, there used to be a lot of ATV traffic with kids, and I was always worried that somebody was going to hurt themselves. It's kind of a mess. I agree with you in terms of the fire access, that you couldn't put a road there. And then if you put a road, you'd have to cut through somebody's property to get back through there. It's not a good solution.
The-
And it's not a good, I don't think it's a good solution. So I agree with you, put some kind of caveat, or rethink it, or do it right, that's all.
Thank you. Any other comments? So do we want to close the public,
So,
what's the next step?
do you still want to get information from the soil scientist through
Yes.
DEP?
If you would like, I have a zoom in
Yeah, no, we've got that.
of the map, which shows where we are adjacent. I forgot to bring it to the last meeting.
Well, I think Ian gave it to us.
Yeah, but this is zoomed
No,
in.
this is zoomed into that spot.
Oh.
So it has Glenwood on it and it has West Pond on it.
Yeah, you could see it, how it cuts
It's
into
pretty
it.
close.
Yeah, it's
And I have
very close.
information on the box strikes.
Yeah, I'd like them to come back and give us information on the endangered species.
So do we need to keep the public hearing open to do that? Will you give us an extension?
Sure, when is your next meeting?
Well, we probably need another 30 days.
It's the end of August.
And just to be clear, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reach out to Connecticut DEP, to Jenny Dickerson, and I'm gonna ask them specifically about the 5-line skink, just for my own, for the commission's notification. And I'll ask him if there's any other species that we should be concerned about. I think the project's, sight unseen is probably most likely willing to adopt whatever best management practices DEEP recommends to protect those species, because I think the application will meet all those performance standards. In terms of the 5-line skink, just, not being argumentative, if you go to research it tonight when you go home, look, there's 4 known populations that are all tied to the west side of the state, to ledge outcroppings on the west side of the state. It specifically is tied to elevations that just don't exist down on the coastal area. That being said, I think consultation with DEEP will acknowledge, I think there's been, at least I heard through the grapevine, that there was
Good catch.
a population identified in East Lyme. So, is there an outlier? I don't know, but we'll reach out to them.
That's all we're asking.
And
That
get
works.
correspondence, but
Yeah.
that, and I'll document it that way, and we'll funnel that through town staff.
Our next meeting is the 27th of August.
Right, and we'd be willing to grant an extension of time to complete the public hearing to the August 27th meeting.
Thank you. So, right now, we'll adjourn this meeting, adjourn this portion of the meeting, I guess, is
The public.
and adjourn's not the right word, I'm trying to think of the right word. We just close right now, and then we'll resume the next meeting. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Bonnie. Hi. Now we have on the agenda old business. Do we have any old business? I don't see any on the agenda. No new business. Move into the Wetlands Enforcement Officers Report.
Will you ask me about the property on Foxen Road? I don't remember the number,
I think it was 2305
2315.
or
right?
15. Yeah, I just Googled it. I didn't know the number.
Yeah, and they have not touched the wetlands whatsoever. They did their reconstruction a number of years ago, and I reviewed it last year before they started on this project, and they're very, very sensitive about where the wetlands are. They have posts in the back marking the wetlands, and, yeah.
And then what about the property that Bill Gadenzis brought up in an email?
So they are developing that lot as a single-family house. They did get a variance from the ZBA in order to be closer to the road, because the lot's only like 100 feet deep. So they'd have to be 50 feet back from the road in order to build a house. So they're going to be able to be 20 feet back from the road. They did cut some trees down. They didn't do any stumping. They weren't in the ground. They're putting a silt fence up later this week to control whatever erosion there is. There are like 12 trees on the lot that they cut. None of them were caliper more than, 2 feet or something. They were
But
all
they
small trees.
clear-cut all the trees from the road to the lake.
Did you see it?
Well, there were no trees down by the lake. They cut 12 trees down.
But they're still within 100 feet, are they not?
They cut some very close to the lake.
Correct, and
So
they
I
will
went
be,
by there, it
they will
looked like to
be,
me
they will
did.
be coming back for a permit to build the house.
But shouldn't they have gotten approval here first to even cut the trees?
I'm not sure that they should have.
Why?
Well, why would they be required to? They
Because
didn't-
that's
they-
wetlands.
They
that's
weren't,
within
they're
the
not in
100 feet
they're
of the
not in the
water.
wetlands, Frank. They're in the buffer.
No, it's right on the lake.
Yeah, they're in the buffer.
So they don't need approval to do that.
I don't believe they need approval to cut trees down in the buffer, no. If they're digging them up and they're stumping and they're filling and they're scraping and they're grubbing, that's a different story.
I don't think we've ever interpreted it that way, have we, guys?
No.
No, I don't ever remember us interpreting it that way. They would need to come here first.
To cut down a tree in the buffer?
Yeah, that's what we've done before.
1 tree or 2 trees or 5?
We had somebody here years ago that cut some trees down in an area right next to her property, right on her property, and they were brought here.
Did you see it?
No, I didn't see that.
This is what you can.
I don't
We've
interpret,
never given permission for that. They need to
Okay,
come.
if you
because-
can,
because
if you can point to a regulation that I can hang my hat on, I would
Because
appreciate it.
according to the email that you said the reason, the way I recall it, and I don't have it in front of me, the reason why they cut the trees down is because they had to do surveying.
Right,
But you don't need to cut trees down to do surveying.
well, yeah, it's a whole lot of help to do it, to
But
get
you don't- but
actual,
I'm sorry, you don't need to cut trees down, even George Washington didn't have to cut trees down. They use GPS right now to do surveying.
but this was not a property survey, this was a topographical survey to determine the levels of the property, the altitude of the property.
I just don't agree. I think, first of all, I think when they come in, they should be paying the penalty rates for doing something before coming to here. They should not have cut the trees down unless they came here first. That's the way I believe it.
Okay, if you can show me the regulation that states that, I will.
So you're saying in our regulations, it says if you're in a buffer, you don't have to come here at all?
In order to cut down trees? As
Yeah.
long as you're not stumping or filling or grubbing or changing the topography of the land, creating erosion factors that are gonna affect the lake, then I don't believe you need to do that.
If I may.
Go ahead.
So again, this term buffer, new to me, all right? So my understanding, it's 200 feet from an identified wetland. We have
It's
jurisdiction.
It's just the Farm River, it's 100 for everything else.
It's 100
All right.
feet,
So here, that 100 feet, are we talking 102 feet?
no,
or-
100 feet.
So it's within that
So
100 feet,
so in
right?
this case, it would
It'd
be
be the
from the
whole,
edge.
it'd be the whole property.
Property, it would be from the edge of the lake to basically to the road, beyond the road. And that, we have always, and you look through the records here, we have always approved it first before they did it. I don't care what it says in the regulation, historically, that's what we've done.
So
On
we
that
just-
same lake, you can look at, there was a couple applications on what's called off Twin Lakes Road.
Right,
And they needed wetlands just to put a dock in.
So when you
Right.
say a buffer, I mean, is it the prohibited area
Yeah,
absent
that's
coordination?
actually-
Or that's
I
just the term we
interpret-
use, buffer?
yeah, so as I interpret, they can't do
That we-
anything within 100 feet unless they come here first.
Right.
So
We-
there's
we-
also
yeah,
the
We can permit it.
inland wetlands enforcement agent can approve that in the buffer without coming back to the commission.
If
Which
it
is
were-
what you said you did, then.
If it were,
Well, I didn't actually make them take an application because they're gonna come back anyway for the house.
Yeah, see,
So that's a different story, because they're gonna be digging and changing and everything else, but I
Then
don't,
why are they coming here if they've already taken the trees down?
well, because they're gonna be digging in the ground, Frank.
Yeah, but the point is, they shouldn't have gone to in my opinion, they shouldn't have gone to P and Z first. They should have come here
No,
first.
they went to the
Or
ZBA.
ZBA, they shouldn't have gone there first, they shouldn't have done anything.
No,
until they came
because
here
if they
first.
didn't get approval from the ZBA, they couldn't do anything.
And then they shouldn't have done anything until they came here. They shouldn't have cut the trees.
I don't agree, Frank.
Well, and I'm sorry, I respectfully don't agree with you too, because that's not what we have, I've been on this commission at least 15 years.
I've been on 20.
And we've never, ever done it. This is
Okay,
the
well,
first
show,
time.
show me the regulation.
You go and look in the files. You have the files. You've
No,
got
I'm not-
thousands of
I'm
files.
not looking at the files, I'm looking at the regulation.
I don't have them in front of me, but I know what we have historically done is, have done that.
Right.
And so I think what you did, I don't agree with it, and I'm going on record that I don't agree with it, and I think it's wrong.
Okay, I
You should have
understand.
they should have come here first before they cut one tree.
So any tree that gets cut within the buffer,
Any work within the buffer has to come here.
I
I
Any
mean,
work.
but if it were a sick tree or something and they asked you and you could actually approve something
Right.
like that.
well, that's,
But to clear cut that entire lot, that should have come before us.
What about?
It always has
growth?
in the past.
What if, I mean, just for my education purposes, what if it was just bramble? Overgrown brush and the guy says, I'm getting rid of this. That would also require, it's a growing thing, whether you like it or not.
Technically, yes.
Just-
Technically, but
Well-
we wouldn't be,
The whole issue here is the
so
trees, right?
maintenance is an allowed activity.
Right, that would probably be maintenance.
Okay, I'm maintaining my property by cutting this tree down.
But
That
those
doesn't-
trees
that
are
doesn't cut it.
multi-years old. They were nice trees.
those trees were on average
Okay.
that big around.
These weren't little baby trees. These were
Right.
huge trees.
So this is not really a matter of who's right, this is a matter of what's right. So right now, we don't really have an answer. You're saying I think you're saying, go get me the regulation, or you're saying, go find me the regulation, but I don't care who's right, I care what's right, so what's right?
Okay, I will check with the town attorney and we'll get back to it next meeting.
Yeah,
Right,
it's not
'cause-
personal,
In the
this is just,
meantime-
what's the regulation?
Are they did you say they're putting up silt
Yeah.
fencing in the meantime?
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
right now, that is a erosion hazard.
Yeah.
There's really nothing holding it together.
I mean,
There was
they
no-
didn't disturb the ground any more than,
No, but there was really nothing on the ground underneath all those trees.
correct. They need a silt fence, 100%.
You know, we had a fella, that was very contentious, I forget if you were here or not, that was filling in, a buffer area along the Farm River. And we had him come here and follow what we wanted to do. He was filling in some soil, because he wanted to cut the grass, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That's less of an issue to me than this was, because we cut trees down knowingly they should have come here.
That was a grass field with a swale in it, and
Yeah.
he filled the swale.
Yes.
Yeah, that came out nice.
And I
So,
think-
I mean, the activity in the buffer needs to have some sort of an effect on the wetland next to it in order to regulate it. You need to create some sort of a nexus between that activity
Oh,
Okay.
and the wetland in order to regulate it.
Well, I just know what we have, at least the 15 years I've been on this, what we've historically done.
Well, I've
And this is the
only
first
been
time
here,
I've heard that we don't have to hear it.
I've only been here for 2.5 years, but I've been in the business for a long time.
I'm not doubting that, but I think in the future, I'd prefer that you come to us before you issue those type of, we shouldn't be surprised because we drive down a street and then see a whole bunch of trees taken down by a lake.
Well, and that could have been an agent approval by me.
But you could at least have sent an email out to us all and said, this is what we're gonna do. Instead, we got an email from Bill Cadenzas as to, look at, they cut down these trees. Because he even interpreted the way I'm interpreting it, they shouldn't have done it.
Okay,
So, I mean, that's your responsibility, I think, to keep us informed.
okay.
So let me ask another practical question. Let's assume that, just for grins and giggles, our investigation or your investigation reveals that there was a violation. There wasn't, as far as I can tell, because you gave approval, or what? Did I miss that part?
Well, they did cut the trees down and then,
Oh, okay.
Oh, so they come first, then came to
So
you.
they came to you
well, I
after
mean,
the fact. Right.
they talked about cutting 1 or 2, and then it was like, they cut a whole lot.
'Cause-
So,
'cause
yeah,
Shouldn't it be,
I did give them a little piece of my mind, Frank.
shouldn't it be in writing, though? If you give them approval, there should be a document, right?
I did not give them approval. I gave them approval to clean up, the brush, like you're talking about.
And okay.
So, yeah, no, they went further than I anticipated.
And that's all
So-
we're talking about, is so that means to me, when they come here on their application fee, they should pay the penalty price for it. Because if you look at our regulations, there's a penalty price coming after the fact, because they cut the trees down. And they should pay the higher amount.
Okay,
Well, who makes that determination?
We do.
All right, so we could also waive it, correct? Say, hey, you screwed up, don't do it again. We could do that. Not saying we would, but we could.
Yeah,
We've done that.
and we have waived fees. All right, any other thing we need to talk about?
I had a question,
Sure.
under new business or your
No.
report. Several meetings ago, we had a very, very vocal developer. He's tied to that development off of 17 there, and same thing there, he's plowing down trees, and he comes in here, barnstorms into the meeting. Nice fella, very robust, you probably remember him, he had charts flying all over the place, and I'm gonna build a motel here, and I'm gonna do that. It's right behind Mill, what
Andy-
happened to that? It just like
Andy
disappeared.
Bizzuto.
Yeah, what happened? Did that like go by the wayside or what? I haven't heard boo from this.
right.
That's Andy talking.
There's a lot of developments like that. We spent years, he knows this, on the Fowler Road project. I can't tell you how many site walks.
Okay.
After 7 years, they had to come back to us with and they came back with a whole new project.
Okay,
They did?
Yeah.
I just
And-
hadn't heard
and-
anything, that's
And they
why I'm
still
asking.
haven't built that
okay,
one.
thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah,
They're still mining over there.
yeah, that's, I mean, these things, go-
Okay.
same
They're
thing
getting close to coming back with a new proposal.
Good.
Same thing like the culverts and the
So it'll
Far
be the-
River.
Oh, yeah, that.
I don't think I'll live long enough to see them removed.
Yes, you will.
Do I have a motion to
motion to
adjourn?
There
Second.
is an application pending, effective like yesterday, in front of the siting council to create a solar farm. It's almost 2 megabytes on West Pond Road on that big lot,
I know, yeah,
like 121,
I know the place. It's a
121 West Pond
It's a
Road.
parcel they've just not been able to sell. all
They
these
have
years.
frontage on
A driveway frontage.
Foxen Road as well as West Pond Road.
Oh, so then I don't know. the-
Yeah, no, it's the one that's up the
So there
hill
will-
on the left.
Yeah, but if they have on Foxen Road as well, Route 80, then it must be the same owner that off of that
Maple Street.
Maple, no, well, Maple Street is the in and out road.
Well, that's where it
But-
comes off of Maple.
Okay, but there's a road at the before you go up that long hill on West Pond Road, there's a road on the left with 3 houses down there.
No, this comes right off of Maple.
Okay, so.
It's got like a 25-foot strip
So-
up to the 20 acres.
Okay. I know the place. Yeah,
And there's a bunch of wetlands at the bottom.
but they're not doing anything in the wetlands, are they?
Yeah, they're gonna have a road that's gonna be really close to it. The solar unit itself is exempt from municipal wetland regulations.
Right,
But-
because it's siting council.
The road that accesses it is not part of the solar facility. So we will have jurisdiction over the road that gets them to the facility. Driveway, not road, driveway.
That, on top of that hill, there was like a 5-acre parcel, and that was subdivided, the original farmhouses in the middle and 4 newer houses around it. That wasn't designated a wetland either, but it is. And all the problems that are coming from that wetland are becoming my problems, because it all drains under the road onto my property. And that is kind of why I was saying with this massive disturbance on this other, the Glenwood Road thing that was before us this evening, when you make huge changes in the upland portions, it affects below.
Right.
I'm a victim of that, so, you know, I just, I don't have a problem approving that project so long as, the paper road is approved. If the paper road is not approved, I do not want them to just pick and choose what they want to get rid of and do. I think it needs to be completely rethought. And
Well, I
how-
think it will be.
If the paper, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Hmm.
if the developer was willing to put in box culverts to protect those 2 sections, would that allay your concerns?
No, it has nothing to do with.
Well, no, I think it does, because the paper road that we're talking about would cut through here and here, but if you bypass the paper road by bridging it or putting a culvert.
It was, you know, it depends who's in office in the town at the time. There were town planning and zoning people several years back. They said, oh, a road will never go out there. You cannot have on that corner of West Bond Road, you cannot have a driveway. You can't make a cut there, is what was said. Now, if somebody argues that, then there will be a cut there. You know, things just change from one administration to another. And I don't care, that's at my brother's house. You know, and this other project, even though it's against my property, I won't even know it's there.
Right.
And it has no effect on my property whatsoever. Maybe I'll hear some noise during construction, that's about it.
I think there'll be a lot of noise.
Yeah, there will be a lot of noise, but again, I do believe it's a massive disturbance that isn't necessary if they were doing 5 lots, not 6. And I would like somehow that to come back to us if the access road is denied.
Okay, so can, anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion,
Yeah.
so,
Second. We are adjourned.
okay.
Very informative meeting, thank you.
Thank you.
No.